Well, I'm nationality, I am Somali, but I see myself as multicultural because I kind of grew up in three different countries. I moved with my family to Kenya when we had the Civil War in 1991. And I kind of grew up in Kenya. I've been in Kenya for 10 years. And then that's where I graduated from high school, got married and had my first child. And then I moved to US to as a visa. First, I arrived in San Diego. That's where my visa was. And then within 24 days or so after I got my papers, like the I-94, I think the first Social Security, then I moved to here in Minnesota because my grandmother and my some of my family were here. And it was January 2001. So in the refugee camp, many women, especially young girls, are so eager to get out and go somewhere that where they can get, education, healthcare, work, become independent. So in any place in the world, when women, young women are that vulnerable, they are mostly misled by men who want to, sort of take advantage. So they were eluding them to say, we will give you process if you marry us or do this for us. So I have become activist in that area, and I was exposing and saying, no, he's not gonna take you anywhere, or that's not real. Just I know what is on the list, and your name is not on the list. Don't do that. So that's when I realized I was by blood activist in families, for women, for kids. As a parent, when I came to this country, I expected the opposite of what I do now. Where I grew up, parents have very little involvement in students' education. When students come home, they are supposed to do their homework and talk about if they want to talk about it in school. But there was nothing about I need to advocate for my child to get a higher education. The teachers were the ones who push students to do better. And if you don't do better at some point, you will be held back. So you will repeat a grade. You don't move ahead. So that was the education system that I grew up. And as a young, I skipped many grades myself. And then I came here. My son at the time was kindergarten and went into first grade. And I realized the need of to push back, especially when you have a young Black minority Muslim child. And at the time, I didn't understand anything. I probably personally, as a parent, that didn't even go to conferences because I didn't know, and there wasn't representation of someone who speaks your language who can explain to you better what to understand. Even though I spoke the language, I didn't know the system, so that made it hard for me to pick up right away. So I was called at a meeting and told my child was candidate for a special ed because he was struggling to sit still, to walk still. He jumps in the hallway. So that was looked at as a behavior need. And for me at the time, I didn't understand. So I said, what is special ed? I need to understand a little bit more. And it was explained to me, and I went home and I consulted with someone who was our community uh, representative or leader at the time, like a nonprofit. So I said, "What? I got these papers from the school. What are those?" And he said, "They're saying your son is delayed intellectually or academically." Like he told me directly the language I understood. So I went back. I went back and I marched in the office and I said, "This is what you think for my child, but I think it's the opposite because my child does at home this level of math, this level of reading, this level of, every academic that you teach in the class, he said he's bored in the class and uh, it's not challenged. So that's when I realized I needed to advocate for my child. So I said, maybe you can test him and see what level of grade he is. Or if you have some higher level of curriculum in the class, you can give it to him. So they said, maybe we can try to test him. It was unsure whether they wanted to test him. I said, I give you permission to test him. He was tested at third grade level. So he skipped second grade. And then I realized my job was just starting. So I am equity specialist in Bloomington District, School District. I work with families from birth to 3 or birth to 5 to high school. I mentor students. I do cultural trainings. I do translation. I sit in meetings where we discuss about kids and students and parents, and we, also advocate for students and their parents, especially communities of color and students of color. And for every aspect from special ed to education opportunities or higher education opportunities. As we know, most of our students of color are underrepresented in higher opportunity education, enrichment education, or opportunities that can give them better, successful future. Here, it works 3 ways. The system, that's how it's set up: parent, teacher, student. So within that 3 way, if you're a parent and you're not going in and out to the school and communicating with the teacher and advocating for your child and asking what grade level they are, even when you're told at the conference that your child is doing well, I tell the parents always ask in what grade level is he or she is doing well. Is it grade level of the grade that my child is in or below level? Then the teachers will have to tell you. But unless you ask, and no one will tell you anything. You just think everything is fine. And then high school level, you are told that they're not graduating. And most parents become surprised because you send your child to school every day thinking they are doing well. And maybe you missed the conferences or you don't know the right questions to ask. Then you are told at 11th grade or 12th grade, your child is not graduating. That's shocking to most immigrant parents because they don't get the correct information all the way up until then. I would say call them. If they don't come, reach out. I've done many home visits myself, especially within the pandemic. We were not able to reach some kids. I did home visit on, myself. I went with teachers. The immigrant community have so much on their plate. The last thing they are thinking of right now is the education of their child. That's on us. We are the educators. We need to make sure what's best for the kids. So, and that's what we did. But that can only happen if there is a budget in that district that can hire well experienced people who speak the same language as the parents, or even have the same culture, who understands the same struggle, the same background. So it can only happen when you have a representation there. I'm a Muslim, so we pray a lot. We pray 5 times a day. We feel we can talk directly to God and ask whenever we are in struggling. My kids are part of the community of, they go to religion school on weekends. We read at home the Quran. And I teach them, regardless of who someone is, or their faith, or belief, or socioeconomic First, you respect them because they are human. And second, you give them the space to feel comfortable, to be who they are. So I raise my kids to be part of the community, but also to know who they are, that they are Muslim, that they are Black, and that they have a purpose. I was raised when you see something wrong, say something. And what drives me to do something about it and to speak up and go to the police meetings and go to the city hall meetings and go to and find and support the candidates that can do something about it is because, we are raising our kids here. But if the same system that works against them is still in place, then they don't have hope. So I want our kids and their kids and, the coming generations to be good citizens who also contribute. My grandmother. My grandmother was a very strong woman, very wise. And I remember something she taught me when I was really young. She said, uh, when you have the chance to say something, don't let that opportunity pass you. And it came because I was in a meeting. My family raised me to be at the table when they were making the decision, no matter what it is. If we were building an extra room because an uncle was getting married, if we were building a wall or whatever, I was always at the table. They were I came from a family that was always put education first because we believe in education is the one thing that can put somebody's life ahead, but also to be a good human. So I was at a meeting and somebody said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Oh, I'm a girl. I can't say anything." So my grandmother was there. And that was the first time I realized I was no different than my uncles that were at the table. Because everybody said, "What?" So then I had a lecturing after lecturing after lecturing from my dad, from my grandmother, from my uncles, from everyone, because they were so concerned that I will fall into the category of I'm a woman and I can't say anything while the men are around. So they are probably enforced in that area, which is why I think the biggest reason, it is the biggest reason why I feel I need to speak up, regardless of who is at the table. I always say what's on my mind, and sometimes it can get you in trouble, but it's a good trouble.